Hello, BC Assessment. Can you just let me know if you can hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you. We have not started our meeting yet. Did you want to share your screen and do your presentation on your end?
Yeah, I can certainly do that. The last one I did that on, the Zoom did not allow me screen share, so just wanted to make sure that
Okay.
be an issue here.
You should be able to. Do you want to just give it a try now before we start?
Sure. We're good.
Yep, we can see it on our end. Just lets you control yourself that way.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. I'm just going to mute us until we open the regular meeting back. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
It is 6:30. Get to this part of the agenda. We'll start with our acknowledgement. The town of Smithers acknowledges the Gitumden clan and the Wet'suwet'en people on whose unceded traditional territory we live, work, and play. The public is notified that the meeting is being recorded and webcast, a notice of which is on the bulletin board outside these chambers. Council, we have an agenda including the supplementary, and with your permission, I'm just going to suggest right now that item in the supplementary 19.1 is going to move, I've lost my page, to 14.3. And that 19.2 is going to move to 11 to the mayor's report, so under 11.7. and that the correspondence from J. Doherty 19.3 is going to move to a lot of pages going here. It will be right after, it's in the 17s, so it'll become 17.3. And if we lose track of that, we'll catch them up as we go. But if that suits you, a motion to approve the agenda. Councillor Raven. Councillor Leonard, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Thanks. We'll see how that goes. And if we get lost as we go, no worries, we'll catch it up. Okay, so first up, we have a couple of delegations tonight, and our first is virtual. And I'm looking at my agenda, so I see T. Penner, and I see someone there. So I'm going to just invite you to unmute, and you can give me your name when you start, since obviously I don't have the whole thing in front of me right now. And I'm going to welcome you. It is always interesting to have this presentation. People are always curious about their property assessments, and they're ever curious about their taxation and how the two join together. So thanks for joining us. And just to make sure we're on the same page, generally with delegations, we sort of have 5 to 10 minutes and then a few minutes for a question and answer afterwards, if that works for you.
Sure does.
Okay, welcome. Please take it away.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully everyone can see that. I'm
We
assuming.
got it. Yeah, we can see
Okay,
it.
perfect. So my name is Taria Penner. I'm a deputy assessor with BC Assessment. I'm working out of the Prince George office. And right now I'm working for the North Central Residential Department out of Prince George. And I'm going to be presenting to you a few things on BC Assessment. So some of the topics I'm going to cover is a bit about BC Assessment, how we apply valuation, classification, exemptions, a bit about our cycles and key dates, how the relationship plays out with local government and our assessments, a bit about the assessment role overview, provincially as well as locally to the town of Smithers, the appeal process, and how we collaborate with our stakeholders. So BC Assessment was established in 1974 under the Assessment Authority Act. So this is our 50th year in existence. We were established under a commission recommendation that was reviewing the province-wide assessment for property taxation purposes. You may have heard of our product. It's called the Assessment Roll. It's an annual list of property values throughout the province. This year, we assessed just over 2 million properties provincially with a total property value of just under $3 trillion. The Assessment Roll will identify ownership, value classification, as well as any exemptions that may pertain to the property. How we value our properties, we're looking at a valuation date of July 1st. So what is the market doing on or around July 1st? With a physical state and condition of October 31st. So that's meaning what condition was the property in as of October 31st with what the market was doing as of July 1st. We often get asked why market value. It is internationally recognized as the fairest system for distributing property taxes, as similar valued properties will be taxed similarly. It does mean that values do fluctuate. So if the market is experiencing any changes to it, our assessment roll will also follow those market changes as of July 1st. And the big picture is that the taxes are distributed fairly. So our key function in the process is to ensure taxes within the similar property classes are distributed equitably. There are factors that may impact market value. Location is one of them. So the proximity to any amenities, transit, employment, and so forth. Land use controls would be things like zoning, official community plans, neighborhood plans. The land characteristics can affect market value. So that's going to be any area, shape, topography, any features of the property. And if there's any improvements on the property, such as buildings, the age of those buildings, quality of construction, size of those buildings. And of course, any income potential, so rentable value, expenses, vacancy, and so forth. A key foundation to our value is the highest and best use. So what is going to be essentially the maximally productive of the property? We go through a series of questions. So the first one that we would look at is what is physically possible. Not everything on a property can be physically done if there's any topography constraints or rock outcroppings or so forth. We would look at legally permissible. So what does the zoning allow? Is there any restrictive covenants on the property? Financially feasible. what's going to generate a return beyond the cost to develop the property. And then lastly, after looking at all of that, what's going to generate the highest value for the property. We classify properties. There's 9 classifications. The most common classification is residential. Second would be the business and other. Property classes do allow a variable tax rate system. So different tax rates can be applied to different property classes. The property class is typically a reflection of the use of the property, and properties may have more than one property class attributed to them if they're used differently. We do apply property exemptions. The 2 common exemptions are permissive exemptions, which are passed by local government, and statutory exemptions, which are through the legal framework. So that's going to be through the community charter, the Local Government Taxation Act, and so forth. So a bit of about our assessment cycle. We operate on a yearly cycle. January 1st to the 31st is considered to be our inquiry period. That's going to be when our assessment notices go live the first week of January. And we have until January 31st for anybody to appeal any property. So that's generally where we're taking a lot of phone calls and answering questions and looking to process the appeals. February 1st to March 31st, which is where we currently are. We just wrapped up our property assessment appeal hearing, so that's the first level of review. And now we're looking at producing our revised roll production, which will go live here shortly. April 1st to September 30th is the biggest chunk of the year where we're looking at the projects, we're looking at non-market change, so any new construction that's happening throughout the year. The second level of appeal is also, there's a deadline in there for April 30th, and then our valuation date falls July 1st. And then October 1st to the December 31st, we're looking at the roll production, where we're completing the roll, we're reviewing all the markets as of July 1st and applying that roll. And then, of course, it goes live again the first week of January, and we're right back into the inquiry period again. There is a relationship between our property assessments and taxation. So essentially, that's the assessed value multiplied into the property tax rate, which is going to be the property taxes payable. BC assessment functions independently of taxing authorities, so we don't set property tax rates and we don't advise on them. An individual property assessment does determine their share of the property taxes for the property class they fall within. And as I said earlier, our function is to ensure that the property tax burden is distributed equitably amongst similarly situated taxpayers. One common misconception is that an increase in assessed value will result in an increase in taxes payable. So we have this graphic here that's been very helpful. It's important to note that this does assume a stable tax base, so it assumes there hasn't been any changes to the tax rate. So essentially, if within your property class, if your assessment has changed lower than the average change for property class, your taxes are likely to decrease. If it's similar to the average change within your property class, it's likely to not change. And if it's higher than the average change within your property class, your property taxes are likely to increase. Provincially, we saw an increase of about 3% on the assessment roll and 18% on non-market change. So non-market change will be new construction. And of the provincial total roll value, 88.5% of it is assessed in Class 1 residential. So specific to the town of Smithers, we saw just under a 3.5% increase on the assessment roll. We did see a decrease of 45% for the non-market change. I'm going to pause there for a little bit and just kind of give some context around that because it looks a little alarming. So for the 2023 roll, there's quite a bit of new construction. There's some strata developments that have been completed. And so we saw a higher non-market change due to the new construction. This last year for the 2024 assessment roll, we didn't see the same amount of new construction in those larger developments. So comparatively to the 2023 roll, to the 2024 roll, there was a decrease. But again, we did see an increase overall of just over $11 million due to non-market change. So again, that's going to be the new construction. And we saw a bit of an increase in Class 1 residential of just over 1%. So specific to the residential single family, we saw a little bit of a decrease in assessed value, not a whole lot, from July 2022 to July 2023. Strata was about a 3% increase, and then we did see a bit of a commercial industrial rate increase of 12%. So through the appeal process, we do look at the completed roll acceptance. So what this is doing is comparing how many properties are on the assessment roll and how many of those properties have appealed. You can see here Smithers in the blue is very stable along the provincial line there in the light green. There was a bit of a drop here. You can see that the acceptance rate decreased this year, and that was attributed to the increase in the industrial commercial valuation, where we saw more appeals this year in those property classes than we had in previous years. So we do collaborate with our stakeholders, with our local governments, as well as the public in sharing our information. We try to be as transparent as possible. We use social media channels for any videos to kind of explain these things and collect feedback on how we can continue to be transparent. And we do also have a taxing authority information sharing program, and that's through the Citrix share file. So that's specific to local governments. It's a program built specifically where we can share information such as building permits, building plans, land use control amendments. We have more and more government signing up for this program. It just allows an easy way, especially in the north here. We don't always know what's happening in the local, in our local governments, in our rural areas. There's a very large area that we cover, so it's an easy way for us to know what's happening in the communities. And this does directly correlate to the non-market change as we add new construction through the information that we receive. Our website is another one that we continually collect feedback on and refine. We have added some new features for interactive trend maps and information for property owners. So I would certainly encourage anybody, if you have time, to take a peek at the website. It's becoming better and better every year. And then, of course, there's additional resources on the government website for the first level of appeal, which is the Property Assessment Review Panel, the second level, which is the Appeal Board, any homeowner grant questions or property tax deferral programs, and so forth. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen and turn it over for any potential questions.
Thank you very much, and for your enthusiasm. It's my experience that people who come from BC Assessment give very enthusiastic presentations. So thank you for continuing that. And it always really is interesting to have, you know, an easy to understand run through from assessment to taxation. I think that's something a lot of us struggle with all the time. Anyway, Council, if there's any comments or questions, now's your moment. Councillor Ray.
Sorry, I just had a question about highest and best use. So with the changes in residential zoning throughout the province, where now you can have up to 3 or 4 units, are we then going to be taxed assuming that that's the highest and best use? Or if you have a single family home, you're going to be kind of penalized, for lack of a better word, because you're not using it to the best and highest use?
It doesn't necessarily work that way. So what we're going to look to is sales. Sales is going to be our first and foremost function in determining what a property is worth. Looking at highest and best use, there are some factors that we would look to for that. I would have to have a very specific example of how that may apply. Currently, right now, I would say that it would be the sales that would dictate any changes to the property.
Thank you.
Any others? I just have one question, and it's a bit historical for us now. How often does the assessment authority, you know, make a change to an assessment classification? So, of course, we had an example where we tried to appeal the reclassification. Is that ever successful?
That I can't speak to. I don't have any stats on that off the top of my head. It would really have to be through the Assessment Act and legislation on looking at what the property class would fall under.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, we tried, at any rate. One last look around the table, Council. Okay, thanks very much for coming and doing the presentation and for leaving the slide deck with us. Appreciate it very much.
You're very welcome. Have a great evening.
Thank you, you too. Okay, and we have a second delegation. So with us in the audience, Dr. Kunkel, come on up. Welcome back. It's nice to have you here and get a little update on Coast Mountain College. So I'll just turn it over to you.
Thank you very much and good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. Just coming to provide an update like I try to do every year. I know it's been a little bit later this year because we've been very busy at the college. So we spent a few months from about summer of last year until January this year, going through the quality assurance process audit, which is a provincial audit that all colleges and universities go through. And it's a 7-year cycle. So it was our turn. So I spent the last however many months writing up our self-evaluation plan. And then in January, we had a site visit with assessor coming from the assessor who came in, like selected by the ministry to come and audit us. And yeah, but we had a good time. They came up with a number of things that were commendations, then came up with a number of things that were affirmations. And the recommendations, we have a few months for a timetable of things together to get this done. But there weren't things that we were not aware of, the things that we just hadn't gotten to or we didn't have enough resources to attend to. So that's taken a lot of our time. And as we moved out of that, then we came into this, the new changes from IRCC, which is Immigration, Refugees, Citizens, Canada, IRCC. They made changes to how our international students come in. So we spent the last few weeks kind of attending to that to see how that's going to impact our institution. And I'm happy to say that, you know, the ministry worked well with the colleges and the universities to make sure that the number of international students we've got coming in wouldn't be reduced, but they worked out their magic to make sure that we were all going to be okay. Now, we only have information for this year, which is this calendar year from January until, well, next January. And we'll find out later in the year, wherever the federal government decide on how we're going to be moving forward. So we're looking at things as they come to us, we'll address them and we'll keep moving forward. So this year we have 19 international students coming to Smithers for the business program. And we're expecting them here from April. So you would see some new students showing up in April to start their classes in May. And as always, we look forward to the generosity of us Smithereens to kind of help us with accommodation. So we're going to be looking for about 19 beds. And we're starting to work right now and kind of look forward to success with that, yeah. So some of the other things we're doing include working with the school district. We work with them on dual credit. So we continue to work with them on our Intro to Health program, Education Assistant program, Carpentry Foundation, and any other foundation course that they may have students for. So we continue to work with them on that here at the Smithers campus. And the school district has been very good. We bring in students both from Houston and the Smithers Secondary School to our college for some work. We also do have university credit students, and they take a course here or there because their ministry would, the K-12 ministry would like all K-12 students to experience university credit before they actually go on to post-secondary. So we're working with the school district on different courses and programs to kind of help them achieve, you know, the goal of the ministry. Then some of the bigger things we're doing include micro-credentials, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Future Skills program. So we do have some programs out there, and the last few programs we put out were oversubscribed. And the ministry don't have a lot of money. They told us that they spent a lot more than they imagined. So we put in a couple of other programs and we're hoping that they will get funded. So we're waiting to see. But the ones we put in that lasted until the end of the year, we had so many people, but because they were online, the audience they were everywhere. And we were kind of, you know, lucky that the programs we had put forward were things that people were looking for. So if there is more money, we hope to repeat that again with the ministry. Then we have a trades program here, and we've been very fortunate that we were able to run the Trades Foundation with the school district, and we went on to run trades level 1, level 2, and the students who completed level 2 are now in the workplace, the apprenticeship program, so they're employed. And we're hoping that after they've got enough hours, we'll put on level 3 so they can carry on. And we're working towards them being able to finish up to level 4 and get their red seal here in Smithers. Then we also have professional cook coming, and that's also another program that we'll have to work with over the next few years to be able to get to the level where they get their red seal as well. So that's in progress. Now, our business program continued to be successful, and we're still working on getting more domestic students in that program. And getting domestic students always a challenge for us, but we just keep working at it, and we're hopeful that we'll see our numbers going up in there. Then our staple programs are our healthcare programs. So we have the healthcare assistant program, and we've been running that for several years now. And that's been the feeder program into Northern Health. So it's a partnership. The students get a job, or they get a job with Northern Health, and they're also in class. So they're getting paid while they're in school. And because of that payment, the work or guaranteed work that they have, they carry on and they get that number of hours that they need. And when they finish, if they choose to move on into the practical nursing program, they can, because they only need 500 hours after the healthcare assistant program, but they're already getting that because they're working and studying. And the program has been very successful also for Northern Health in terms of helping them get people into the workplace. And we've been working with the ministry and a number of colleges. We're all kind of lobbying to try and get more programs like that, whereby, you know, the placements are paid for. The students are in the workplace at the same time studying, because that seemed to be a very successful model that we're using right now. But in addition to that, we're working on practical nursing program, which is a program that would allow students to come straight from high school into the practical nursing program without going through the healthcare assistant program. So we did get funding for that. We're working on that program, and we're hoping to start running that program in the coming year at the Smithers campus, along with our other campuses. And because we're working on other things, like we do have our regular nursing program at the Terrace campus, and we're hoping that you know, that would be a successful program because it feeds into Northern Health as well in the entire region. So those are the things that we're doing here. We're still kind of hoping that we'll get money for our student housing. We're in line for funding. We're just hoping and waiting for an announcement, hopefully soon. So that's all I have in terms of update for now. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thanks very much. Councillor Raven?
Not questions so much as just comments. So I've been following what the college has been doing quite closely, and I'm always impressed with the nimbleness is when a need is brought forward. We hear about how there was no care aids, and next thing you know, the college is doing a care aid course. And I know that one's been incredibly successful. I've talked to people within Northern Health where they said like that was the catalyst to get them into their careers. So I just wanted to highlight just how wonderful it is, because we know it's hard for people if they go away to school. The likelihood that they come back is actually quite low. But if you train in Smithers, you're far more likely to stay in Smithers, or at least the local area. So I just think fantastic job. I saw the university preparation courses that has been running through the college, which is also fantastic. That was a world I didn't know existed. My daughter's going into grade 12 next year, so I've been doing a lot of reading. But yeah, all of that, I think we're just very lucky in Smithers to have the college being as in tune as it is. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott?
Thanks for your presentation. I just had a couple questions. You're talking about the trades. What's the biggest trade that kids are choosing today? What's the most common one that you are seeing?
Here in Smithers, we have carpentry. I mean, we've tried other trades and we haven't been successful in the past, but carpentry seemed to be the most successful one for us. And part of the reason for that is because the students are coming from, or some students are coming from the high school with the trades foundation that they take in high school. That's the equivalent of level 1 apprenticeship. So they can go off with that and they can get into the workplace. and then they can come back to us for the level 2 program. And with the trade program, you don't have to go all the way to Red Seal to work. So people have been able to take out wherever level and then go off into the workplace. So that's been the most successful one for us. Then the second successful one for us as a college is the automotive one, but we don't have that here at this campus because it requires a lot of investment. And we don't get enough students with that one either because the numbers are very low in there. And it's the lack of apprenticeship out there, and which is why the numbers are very low. But in the Lower Mainland, they do have a lot more people. Or in the North, we don't seem to have a lot of, industrial companies out there taking on apprentices. Yeah.
And then one more. Have you noticed any changes to the numbers of international students regarding the changes to immigration? The government is, I don't know if they're proposing or has it slowed you down at all?
No, fortunately it hasn't because we only bring on moderate number of students in the first place. So we don't have a lot. And we try to look at the resources in the areas where we have by comparison to a number of institutions in the Lower Mainland where they bring in a lot more. We don't have enough infrastructure to accommodate a lot. So we've always kind of tried to gauge how many we have. And in this part of the country as well, we don't have enough social amenities for students. As an example, I mean, I give us here in Smithers as an example, we don't have a Sikh temple or a mosque. So different things like that cannot help the students. But the terrace area, I think they have a Sikh temple. And I think there is one probably going out to Houston. So we have to consider, the place of worship, one good thing I have to say about us here in Smithers is they can find a job before they can find accommodation. They can find a job the minute they land. So we have that as an advantage over, some of our other regions like Prince Rupert or Terrace. Yeah, but we have to balance these things out because we really don't want to be one of those institutions where our students are homeless that you read about. Yeah, we don't want to be them. Yeah.
One last thing. And this is curiosity of my sake, because where I work, we hire lots of recent immigrants. Do you find immigrants who are in your business program, do they have diplomas from their home country in other areas? The reason I ask is we seem like there's lots of people that we hire that are like engineers and they're having trouble applying their skills in Canada. And it seems like it takes a long time to get over that hurdle, but I'll just let you answer. Thank you.
Yeah. No, we do have, our business program is actually post-degree diploma. So that means they've got to have a degree before they come into our business. But most of them are not working with the degree they already have. So they're coming in and they're taking business because it helps them and it kind of gives them like 2 years to get in. Some of them do pivot. We've seen some who've come in with things like pharmacology and things like that, and they've been able to pivot when they get here and get into jobs in those areas, even though they're studying business. So they see the business program as something that would help them get in and also get a job like straight away. And eventually some can pivot, but not all of them. Some do.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. I'm thinking of you and your announcement for student funding for housing. That's going to be exciting. We'll just manifest that will occur.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, I should probably know this, but do you have an idea of where that student housing will be located? Will it be on premise of?
We do
college?
have a compound. I mean, at our campus, we own the land beside. We have actually two plots. Both of them are fenced. And they are to the right of the building, between us and the next building. So that belongs to the college. And the plan right now is to have housing in there. So we also do own the footprint where the car park is. But the plans that were submitted was for the compound, which is to the right of the building.
Councillor Ray.
I was just wondering who you're funding through for student housing would be coming through? Is that through advanced education or is it through BC Housing or?
It's through advanced education.
Okay, so that's, you know, maybe if we're at UBCM and you still haven't heard an announcement, we'll try and put in a good word. So
Thank you.
thanks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
A
you very
question?
much.
Actually, I just had one question. Sorry, I'm trying to find it here.
Okay.
I think it's, yeah, I'm landing back at the housing too, and Councillor Ray asked it. You know, I appreciate that the Coast Mountain Foundation is trying, and there's all the sort of strange complexities between, you know, who owns the land and who can apply for the funding and all that stuff. Excuse me, I think if there was a message, particularly after recently being at the campus in Terrace, is that it's really time. And if there's something that we need to do that really assists, and I can take this up with Yvonne at the foundation as well. But, you know, I can see the level of investment and that sitting at the main center, and I really think it's time for investment at this one. It's been a long time. I mean, the campus is beautiful here, but it is time to support this facility with the necessary housing. You know, it's, I think before your time when we supported with the temporary housing. And at that time, it was thought the permanent housing was not too far away. And so I just think, you know, through your own communications, and I communicated it when I saw what was going on in Terrace, when I saw the scale of that investment, when I was there. But I think as well, just to share that, it feels to me that it is more than time for an investment here at this center. So thanks for what you do, and you can just share that with your colleagues as well.
I will certainly do, and I appreciate your support as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for
everyone.
coming
Thank you. Have a good evening.
and for your work. Okay, council, how's everyone doing? You good? Alrighty. Where are we? We're at, oh, sorry, we're at the public comment period. This is the moment in the agenda. If someone wants to speak to something that is on the agenda, an item on the agenda, I invite you to come to the delegation table and you have 3 minutes. We'll start the egg timer. And for the record, if you don't mind just giving your name to the clerk for our record, and she'll get it, I think. And then the button makes, pardon me?
Gonna try and do it in 3 minutes.
Alrighty.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for welcoming us to your meetings. We appreciate it.
You might be about to do it, but just for everyone's benefit at the table, if you don't mind introducing yourself too.
I'm Ken
Thank-
Penner from actually Telqua, but we love Smithers. And we come here as a friend. I speak here as a friend. And we've been to lots of meetings and I've observed a few things that I'd just like to comment for your information. One of them, I wrote you a letter. Did you read it, everybody? Anyway, out of that letter, I'm just going to expand on a few things about grant money. For one thing, the grant money coming from the province and the feds is money that they don't have. They're making debt faster than we can speak. We're going to have to pay for that one day. We will, taxpayers. It's not money that they have. So they're going to have to raise taxes. They're going to have to somehow pay for it, or our economy is going to collapse. And it might, the way it's looking to me. So this spending causes inflation that we're seeing right now. You can't throw money out the back of a pickup without having money not being worth much. That's what they're doing. Double the debt on the feds. But anyway, but more concerning is the strings attached to the grants. And I'd like to give you 2 examples. One, you've got a letter from the DKIA people, or the hospital, what is it called? Smithers Housing Society, saying they ran into all kinds of things with BC Housing because of government edicts and all kinds of things. They'll be talking to you about that one. And I'm no expert on that one, but Also, Delta Hospice Society was a private society that had 10 units, run privately, built privately, had a lease. They didn't allow euthanasia there. So what happened was the BC government pulled their lease and basically took their hospice away because they wouldn't allow euthanasia there. So this is 2 examples, but there's many more. In medicine, agriculture, emergency services of government overreach into right in our society here. If this continues without pushback by local governments, you and the people, the very tenets of our democratic society will be undermined. Because we just rubber stamp what they say and they have all these conditions. So how can we approach, let's say, the daycare in Smithers? I suggest that we approach the community and say, people, is there any people who could have daycare in their home? I'm pretty sure there would be quite a few. Churches, societies that are already here, might not even have to have a building for it. There are already people that would do that. And the way to encourage that is to cut red tape, allow these people to have these things. And yeah. So benevolence. This community is very benevolent. And you guys alluded to that in the last meeting about the soup kitchen. They're done without any government subsidies. It's just people that are benevolent in this society, right here in our, and Salvation Army, New to You, all parts of that. I've seen it personally where we had 2 houses burned, people's housing burned, totally funded by benevolence of contractors in this town, people who cared, did it all, not $1 from the government. And I'm thankful for being part of a community like that. So Bulkley Valley is very benevolent community. Government could reinforce this benevolence by cutting taxes and red tape to facilitate community involvement. On the other hand, this community spirit could be quenched by heavy-handed top-down government overreach mandates and edicts. I'm reminded where Jesus said, it's more blessed to give than to receive. Also, we come here to pray. You guys ask us, what do we come here? I pray for wisdom for you, wisdom for us, because it says here, if you need wisdom, ask your generous God and he will give it to you and he will not rebuke you for asking.
Okay, and I'm gonna draw you in because we've had the time.
Thank you. I'm done.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I thank you for listening and hopefully it's an encouragement to you because you're doing amazing work here. I didn't realize it. I'm realizing more and more how it works. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else in the gallery who wanted to speak during this public speaking time to an item on the agenda, please? I'm going to try to keep you focused. And if you don't mind just connecting us to the item on the agenda, please.
Engel Overman, 3683 4th Avenue in Smithers. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the chance to address you. I am going to talk briefly about zoning, rezoning. And it's possible that I may live to regret my comments, but my normal approach is that I try to share comments which are in the best interests of the town and its citizens. A recent survey, and I'm talking 2
Sorry,
months ago.
Singo, I'm just going to jump. You said zoning, so is this 14.4? I just got to connect it to an item on the agenda.
Sorry, 16.1.
16.1.
Yes, of course.
Okay, right, thank you.
A recent survey done about 2 months ago that I did on the downtown core between King Street and Main Street, but not outside of that, and including the Main Street itself, revealed to me that there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 80 vacant 25-foot lots. And we have this terrible patchwork of empty spaces in the downtown core, which could be put, I think, to better use to increase the density. We have in Smithers, in my mind, we have an acute shortage of housing for single seniors and younger people as well. And I think we should do our best to try and accommodate that. That certainly doesn't happen with mega houses behind Canadian Tire, but it can happen if we approach things properly and ensure that any building in the downtown core also has residential apartments upstairs. Now, keep in mind that unless a two-story building has an elevator or electric stairs inside, it really is of very, very little benefit to seniors. So in my mind, the best possible use for rezoning of 1290 King Street is for single-story micro apartments of 300 or 400 square feet, which would benefit a lot of seniors. There's probably room on that piece of property. It's a beautiful piece of property. It's got wonderful exposure. There's probably room on that for four, and between 4 and 8 decent-sized apartments, which would be very, very useful to seniors, close proximity to doctors' clinics, to banking, to grocery shopping. Don't need a car. Lots of seniors don't have a car. So it's an ideal location. But again, if you're going to go 2 stories, then you have to have an elevator or electric stairs. Otherwise, it's really not feasible for seniors.
Okay, and
So
I'm gonna just urge you to the end.
Sure.
Because we're just at time, so.
Sure. So I'd ask you to keep that in mind for your deliberations in the future, because it's important we have a chance to really, really increase and improve the downtown density of housing without necessarily expanding the commercial core. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak to something on the agenda? Okay. Council will move on. Next up are the minutes. So first up, 8-1, the minutes of March 12th for adoption, please. Councillor Patterson, Councillor Raven. Errors or omissions? Councillor Elliott.
My name's spelled wrong. Should be 2 T's. Item 11.2.1. It's 1 T. That proves I read it. Yes, I already noticed that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, we got it. Thanks, folks. Is there any other comments on the agenda or the minutes rather? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried and the spelling is noted. 8-2, minutes of committee of the whole, and I always get mixed up on these. Do you want a motion to adopt first? And then we'll deal with the motion? Let's just do that. I'll just decide. Let's adopt the minutes. Councillor Patterson moves. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Raven, discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay. And then there is the motion. I have it on page 51 of 56 for the last page of the minutes. And there's a motion there. Councillor Ray.
Just, if memory serves me correctly, I was rushing off to come back home from Terrace, but I think my motion, that was the motion I made, but I think it was should have been to authorize the mayor to sign it, because I think that was the ask, but I need others to correct me.
I can see Ms. Lee checking. While we're waiting just for that clarity on who signs, I mean, I think we can accept a motion either way to, if it's the pleasure of council to direct the mayor and or CAO, whatever the correct signatory is, if that's the direction of council. Councillor Patterson.
Your worship, just for clarity, I do recall, and it was, we, I think, decided that saying staff was inclusive of the mayor.
Alrighty, Councillor Raven. Oh, I thought I saw your hand. Okay, so let's just get the intention of council. We won't get hung up on who signs. If it's the direction of council that it be signed, let's get that on the table and we can talk about it. Councillor Patterson? You moving as it's worded there? Is there a seconder? Councillor Raven seconds. Mr. Doer, you're going to say something? Okay. Okay, council. Councillor Ray.
Just to be clear, this motion is what I said. Staff didn't make a mistake. I thought maybe I had. I just wanted to kind of maybe expound a little bit on my support, because I share some of the concerns of others. I've chosen to trust the Smithers Bridging Committee, and I do, I believe it was Ms. Cody that said that if things do start to go south and some of our fears come to mind, we can always withdraw from it. So that's why it has my support at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Ray. Since I wasn't there and I didn't hear the conversation, although I've heard the previous conversations, can someone make clear for me who the reporting is to? Councillor Raven.
So any report that's filed goes to the bridging committee, and then they make sure that it's kept confidential and it's just for data collection, and they might choose to pursue it on their own if it's warranted, but they won't go anywhere else. If there is legal ramifications, they might suggest to the person that submitted the report that there are other channels that they could go through, but that's not what the bridging committee is for. It's not the conduit to bring anything to a higher level.
Thank you. Councillor Leonard.
I'll just go on record. I will be opposed to the motion for the reasons I said when we discussed it, when the bridging committee was here. While I, appreciate the passion of the individuals in the committee, I do appreciate their passion and I understand what their drive is. I think it's an extra level of bureaucracy that our staff doesn't need to be involved in when we do have the RCMP and that is their responsibility. And it sort of silos accusations, and I think it's just not a good path ultimately. So I will be opposing.
Thanks, Councillor Leonard. Anyone else? Councillor Ray?
Just part of what changed my mind was that it did appear from the Smithers Bridging Committee that the idea was to support the victims rather than to seek retribution or even to have the accusation, which was my, with the amount of interactions I have with the public, there's always misunderstandings, and had a little bit of a concern about that coming to an accusation where one person is supported by somebody and the other person isn't. But to me, it seemed more like it was to provide support to those that had experienced or even thought they had experienced racism. So that's why I'm choosing to support it. Talking to people that have been victims of racism, and it's not entirely outside my experience, but it's nowhere near the experience of what the stories I hear that still happen in the community to this day. So I'm hoping that's the thrust, is that it's supporting the victims and helping them deal with it in whatever way seems appropriate.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Okay, because I glanced this way, I saw Councillor Elliott first, so Councillor Elliott first.
Yeah, I shared the concerns too, but then I did acknowledge, I think that it's about calling people in, not calling people out. So I appreciated that sometimes it's just a matter of education or a matter of digging down to why something has arisen. And it can be negative or it can be positive. And I hope that the bridging committee can help make those things into positive experiences, even though I think we talked a lot about misunderstanding. So that's why I supported it. I think it's a good document, but it definitely could be abused if you really wanted to do that, which I don't believe it will be.
Councillor Raven.
And I also just really wanted to highlight, I appreciated how bystanders are able to help submit the reports. And the reason why I think that's so incredibly important is, again and again, it's the marginalized members of our community that have to continually advocate through the bureaucracy and through the different levels to have their voices be heard, and just to be able to have them have the support. And I mean, and as a community come together where we can stand up and recognize what it is. And also, you know, it might open our eyes, right? I know I hear again and again, well, racism isn't a problem in Smithers, and there's no data to support that either, right? Like, we hear stories. So I think that this is just one of those things where we just might become more aware of it, and then we can actually take steps to solve it rather than just putting our heads in the sand and saying it's not a problem.
Thanks, Councillor Raven. Just because someone said, and I don't remember who, that if it was found to be onerous or not working for us, there was a review process. So I'm just wondering about that, if that was actually discussed. So if there was a decision to review, how does that happen? Does anyone know? No? Okay, Councillor Ray?
Well, I think it's not like a contract where we have to give 30 days. If we're unhappy with, you know, like if Councillor Leonard's right and it's taking a lot of staff time, staff could come to us and say this, you know, this is taking a lot of our time. Then we could choose to have a discussion whether it was appropriate to withdraw, or if it starts getting abused in the future. So it's not, I don't think there's any consequences through signing on of unsigning on, if that makes any sense. It would be just simply passing a motion to say that we're no longer signatory, I believe.
The only thing that is, well, I wasn't there, so probably a lot of it is unclear, and the other meeting is a long time ago. Was there some discussion of what it means in terms of work for staff? I mean, I can ask staff, but council moved this, so this wasn't a staff discussion, it was a council discussion.
There wasn't a discussion, but I will note that staff presented it to us to receive the report, not to become a member.
I think the only thing, and again, it's coming as a latecomer to this discussion, and the original discussion was quite a long time ago, and my recollection is that council was not ready at that time to sign on, is as a local government, we have so many processes for our staff. So maybe this will be my last question. And are we talking about staff in this, or are we talking about people who come to the counter? Who's actually affected by this? Councillor Ray?
So I believe, if I read it correctly, that as an organization that signed on, we're committing to, if there's something within our organization, there's been a complaint by a staff member against another staff member, and it's just to report it, not for the bridging committee to come in and try and resolve or anything, but it's just so we can start to gather data. Is this a problem in our organization? So, and as a counselor, I would hope not. But if we start to see data through this that it is a problem, then perhaps it's something we could address as well. So, so there is some work for staff for that reporting part for sure.
I just have one question of clarity. Then I saw Councillor Patterson and Councillor Leonard. So does the reporting simply mean that we report there was an incident, or is it details and names? Do we know? Councillor Patterson.
Sorry, Worship, I feel like we're rehashing the entire conversation that we had. So maybe, sorry, I'm just thinking, I think it's going to take us down a dangerous rabbit hole. So maybe I'm just wondering, if there's no time frame, sorry, Mr. I'm staring at you, to sign on or make a decision, shall we wait until maybe her worship has had some time to think about it and then we can?
Absolutely, council, if they so choose, can table the motion for a future meeting.
Thanks, and I appreciate that, Councillor Patterson, and the reminder that, yeah, I did miss the meeting and I have to trust the group, but no, it's a good reminder, actually, and it's fair. Councillor Leonard, and then I'm not sure if Councillor Ray has his hand up.
I was just going to point out that there are mechanisms in place already with businesses through WorkSafe. You know, bullying, harassment policies, there's all kinds of policies, violence prevention. So, you know, the staff, the town of Smithers is already held to that standard, and they do have to report and deal with those incidences in private, of course, in their own organization. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Did I see any other hands? Councillor Ray?
Oh, somebody had pointed out that the recommendation to the committee of the whole was to receive, but I believe when it originally came to us that the recommendation was to sign, although I might be wrong.
I can look to staff for clarification. The information that's being shared is, I think, go ahead, Mr. Dur.
Yeah, so staff recommendation to the committee of the whole was to receive for information. And then the committee of the whole did vote on or make the motion to sign on to the agreement.
Thank you for the clarity. Okay. Yeah, in support of our practice at this point, I think I'm going to vote against. So is there any other, unless I change my mind in the next 2 seconds. So is there any other comments? I'll call the vote. All in favor? And opposed? Your hand was in the affirmative, Councillor Ray. So the motion passes with Councillor Leonard and myself opposed. Okay, thanks for humoring me through that. I appreciate it. And where we're at right now. Sorry, I've lost the page. Sorry about that. Okay, there we are. So we're up to staff reports or council reports and thanks. So Councillor Bucama has regrets. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor Axel. I attended a library board meeting on March 13th. We skipped the February meeting because there wasn't anything new for the agenda. I did not submit the report. My apologies. But I have it in front of my face right now, so. One of the focuses of the library in March, February was leading up to Freedom to Read Week, which is in February. There's some declarations and basically regarding freedom of literature and reading and some of the book bannings that have been, books have been challenged as far as intellectual freedom. So that was one of the things that was brought up in our board meeting, which is to me really important. Some of the things that are coming up are concerning as far as what is considered a bannable book and what isn't. So I'll move on to some more positive things. There's some programs, of course, it's spring break is last week and this week. So library has some very good programs while the kids are out of school. They are continuing on through the week this week as well. There's some readings from some authors, some book launches taking place in the near future. A lot of their regular programs are going forward. The numbers and stats from the library are climbing to near pre-COVID levels. And it's been a very good start to 2024. So that's really encouraging, even 6% higher than last year. And yeah, it just seems like it's getting back to where it was. People are re-engaged with the library again, which is really encouraging. So yeah, just thank Wendy and her people there for doing a great job.
Thanks, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Leonard.
Not much to report, but I thought I'd better bring it to council's attention that I did have a conversation, very informal, with Phoebe Lazier from BC Rural Health Network. We had a phone conversation and she had just solicited me for my personal opinion on healthcare and in the community. So I gave it to her and they're doing, I think, a survey on looking for support on certain initiatives, but she really just asked me questions more than offered ideas.
Thanks. It's always nice to be asked your opinion because you're sure you know what it is. It's great. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just that I attended the Fall Fair Management Committee meeting on March 6th. There are minutes in this agenda package for folks. And I just wanted to make a gentle reminder to folks to please make sure that you're picking up after your pets. We just noticed that's something that's ongoing at the fall fairgrounds themselves. And even as someone who's an avid walker, I just want to say thank you to the golf course for allowing us to be able to walk and recreate out there over the winter and spring. It's been really lovely. But again, I also notice just a lot of people aren't picking up after their pets. So just a gentle reminder to please do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Raven.
So I delivered my reports out to everybody. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to get in the agenda previously. I did realize one omission on the March 15th RBA announcement. MLA Jennifer Rice was in attendance and I didn't note her on my report, so apologies for that. And the other highlight was just that we did have Neurodiversity Week last week here in Smithers, and there was events hosted almost every single day. And it's just a great opportunity to just remember that neurodiversity is around us all the time, and we can all take steps to make sure that everyone in our community is valued and celebrated, and that everyone can contribute in their way to the community. And the Cat Cafe on Catterday was amazing.
Thanks, Councillor Raven. Councillor Ray.
So just springing off what Councillor Patterson said, part of the problem that was brought up at the fall fair was dogs off leash at the fall fair. And I don't know if it's people new to the community, but that don't realize you have to have your dog on a leash everywhere in the community. Yeah. But at the fall fairgrounds, there's a very strong potential for negative interactions between an off leash dog and a horse. So that's why the concern was brought up. So while we have some of the community's attention, I think it's important to note that's why the concern is there. And then also I had the Smithers and District Transit Committee meeting, which you were at as well. And just to note that the 5-year plan is going forward to stakeholder engagement and public engagement later on this year.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. My report got in the supplemental. Thank you, Ms. Lee. And also is the sort of the standing committee strategic priorities. And I did sort of note a couple of things. And I should know this, so I've forgotten. So Mr. Doer, I apologize for a late thing. So these things that are passed. So the one that I underlined is on page 1, and it's the Fall Fair Management Committee, and it was to initiate in the second half of 2022. So that's just a record for us of decisions that we've made, but we've not actually decided to move forward on. So we're seeing, maybe I'm speaking to myself here, but this is a record of things that are, so the Fall Fair Management Committee especially is like it's a big project sitting on the side of our desk. So we've made note of it in the past. We've put dates to it, and then we're not reacting to it. So I kind of looked at this report this time and really saw the things that we've set aside. So the next time we gather for this purpose, I think it behooves us to actually look at these things. And if the intention now is to set them aside indefinitely, perhaps we need to say that for some of these, maybe not, but this time when I went through, I just really saw these old decisions that we've moved away from and they're still sitting here. So if they're not reminders, we still want to see, I think when we have that next meeting, perhaps it's time to just deal with them. Anyway, that's just my thought on that. If there's any questions on my report or anything from that, the standing report, we can have them now. Otherwise, I'll move on. Okay. Everyone still okay? We're gonna move to the 14s. First up, 14.1, and we have a report from Ms. Lee with a recommendation, and this is on the C2C. And Ms. Lee, Councillor Raven moves. Councillor Patterson seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. (14.2) report from Ms. Allen on Wet Simcoe Community Forest Grant and the Main Street Market with a recommendation.
Mayor, I shall be recusing myself. I am a director at Proton.
Thanks, Councillor Elliott. Okay. We'll call you back when we're done. Alrighty. Council, what's your pleasure with this one? Councillor Patterson. Yep. Question?
Thank you, Worship. I'm hoping maybe someone can help question through to staff on clarity on what's actually being proposed. Where I got hung up is the only synthesis that I can see is that we're going to host a new Main Street Market program. But I'm just not clear on what's actually being proposed. And then my second question would just be, well, actually more of a comment. I'd just like to see engagement with those local businesses prior to, I think, any decisions being made. But if there's any clarity from staff, that might help my decision making this evening. Thank you.
Mr. George, thank you.
Through your worship to Councillor Patterson, I would love to provide you with some additional information on this. So the Main Street Market is a relatively new initiative. It's a pilot project. I believe in the past, Smithers had a market that was different than the farmers market, closing down, the downtown core and different streets on Main Street. So this is a pilot project to support placemaking initiatives in the community. The proposed project is to have 3 different events over the summer, over July and August. So the scheduled days would be July 20th, August 3rd, and August 17th. On Saturdays from 1 until 5. There would be vendors that would be reached out to, as well as food trucks that would work within our mobile vending policy that we're putting forward to council, working with the downtown businesses for pop-up stores, support with the nonprofits that we have in our community, and local groups. The proposed partnership with Proton is very similar to what the town of Smithers has for Canada Day, where Proton provides support for the entertainment and for some avenues of the event, including musicians and activities for the kids, a play area there. There has been outreach to date to the downtown businesses with survey responses indicating that the business community would be in favor of this, and it would not be replacing the farmers market or anything that currently exists. It would be working in alignment with that. To date, there has been correspondence, as I mentioned, with the farmers market, outreach to the chamber, the Downtown Business Improvement Association, who's planning on hosting additional events this year. So this would be to support our downtown businesses. This grant would go towards kicking off this event and seeing for the pilot project here. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. George. That's good. Councillor Patterson. Councillor Raven.
I'm in favor of the staff recommendation. I think it's just wonderful. Anything that can get more people downtown in a fun way. It livens everything up. And I remember I was in, I believe it was Kelowna, on a work trip, and they kind of did the same kind of thing. And I was heading to my hotel and I ended up spending about 2 hours in the area. There was music, there was food. It was just really good and it livened the place up. And I asked, I said, like, is this something that happens all the time? And they only do it a few times a year in that area. And it was just really, really positive. And I know it left a very positive impression with me as a visitor.
Thank you. Can I take that as you move the recommendation? Councillor, I think, sorry, I jumped the gun. Councillor Leonard's with you. Okay. Any further discussion? Councillor Ray.
Yeah, so I'm happy to support the letter, but I do trust that staff and Proton will listen to concerns. I mean, one thing, it, there was move before to try and move the farmers market downtown. They didn't want to move downtown. I'm a little concerned that if we're coattailing off the end of the farmers market, that perhaps it might change the dynamic of the market as to when people actually go. So maybe now they're, you know, the market kind of winds up between 11:30 and 12, whereas now that might be the bulk of when everybody's there. And I don't, you know, it's just a concern that may come up. And I'm just hoping that, you know, as we do these events, that we were able to tweak them and listen to feedback from businesses downtown, et cetera. But I think anything that we can do to make things more lively is a good thing.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. I'd echo that. The farmer's market's probably my biggest concern, but I love the notion, so I'll be supporting. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Thanks, Councillor Patterson. We sure can. It's 7:42. How about 8 minutes, as I love these odd numbers? 7:50. Okay. Okay. Thank you. call it back to order, so I'm gonna invite the gallery to either join us or have your conversation in the lobby. Thank you. Okay, call back to order. It is 7:50. And council, we are at item 14.4, and this is, at least I think we're at 14.3. I skipped one. We're at 14.3, the report from Mr. Shibley on the Alpine Village Estates looping, and this is the one where I've inserted 19.1 from the supplemental. So there is a recommendation, but council, if there's questions for clarity first. Otherwise, if someone wants to make the recommendation or a different motion, now's the time. Councillor Ray.
I'll move the recommendation and I can speak to it after.
Okay, is there a seconder, please? Councillor Raven seconds. Councillor Ray.
I was opposed at doing this, but trying to keep in the spirit of separating that lost that one. I'm more than happy to award the award to Cutting Edge.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Leonard.
I just had one question. What was the estimated cost when this was originally presented to council?
Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mayor Atchell. To Councillor Leonard, it was budgeted at around 70,000. That was the estimate. Yes.
Any other questions? Councillor Patterson.
Your worship, I don't know if it's appropriate, but to still continue to express that I will be voting in opposition for reasons stated previously. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll call the vote. All in favor and opposed? The motion carries with Councillor Patterson opposed. Now 14.4. Okay, we have a report from Mr. Lee, and this is the one titled temporary use permit for lodging trailer at the fire hall, and there is a staff recommendation. And there was a new site plan distributed by Chief Dixon at the beginning of the meeting. So if you don't have that, we'll get it to you. Sort of just shows a relocation of the trailer. Either way, the motion be on the floor, or we can, if there's questions of clarity, we could do that first. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, your worship. So a few questions through to staff. So I have 1, 2, 3, I have 5. I apologize, but I'll try to make it short. So the first one is just the term, asking why 3 years versus the 5-month program. Second is on the design of the actual trailer itself and if it's going to be separated. So for example, is it co-ed? Will there be individual locked rooms? The third is around a health and safety assessment of the trailer, so the condition that it's in. Fourth would be, have you thought about fencing for privacy between the trailer and the market? And my 5th question is around long-term planning for accommodations in the fire hall. Thank you.
Okay, if someone didn't get all 5, we'll come back to you. But Chief Dixon, do you want to start and we can get the questions repeated if we need?
Absolutely. And thank you, your worship, Councilor Patterson. Yeah. Initially, the plan was to position the lodgings for the term of the work experience program each season. So essentially bring it in, position it for 5 months, and then remove it and return it to its present spot. That discussion transitioned to there's a cost associated with approximately $1,000 to move this thing back and forth each way. So there was some thought to, well, if it's amenable to everybody involved, why not just leave it there and save a bunch of money? So hopefully that answers that question. We would be open to positioning it for the term of the work experience program for each season. As an extension of that, the idea was that if this program took off after year 1, 2, that a more permanent solution, which we've already begun looking into in terms of feasibility, would be a more desirable and more permanent solution.
Councillor Patterson.
This will be my last comment, your worship, so I don't monopolize, but I just wanted to say that I like that you're talking about doing sort of a trial and error, so to speak, like see how it goes. Because my only consideration was, while I appreciate that there's going to be access to things that are essential to accommodation, I just think it, I couldn't help but think about people running to and fro in the middle of the night, basically from the trailer to the hall, to be honest. So that's why I asked about the long-term design. So that's it for me tonight. Thank you.
I'm not sure the chief got through all of your questions though, so. I thought I heard you say something about the inspection of the trailer, the health and safety of the trailer and the fencing.
Yes, your worship, and just the design. So if it's co-ed, for example, or is it going to be multiple people living all together? Thank you.
I'll speak to the first one. As far as the safety, we're doing an ongoing assessment of the trailer and I've been compiling a cost analysis of bringing it up to livable and safe and appropriate conditions, including the heating system, the electrical system, flooring, smoke alarms, fire extinguishers. The trailer is actually in relatively good condition. There was no evidence of any concerns re water leaks or contamination that we would be concerned about. So I think just for the sake of a few dollars, it would be more than appropriate as an accommodation as it was when it was originally positioned across the street. As for co-ed, this unit contains 5 100 square foot single rooms, and the idea would be they would be independent. So would each person would have their own 100 square foot space.
Okay, Mr. Dewar.
I was just going to build, staff has talked about the potential for privacy fencing as well as, just kind of wrapping the trailer for some kind of aesthetic improvements. And we haven't determined costs at this point in time or options to move forward, but it's certainly one that staff has discussed and is open to further investigating.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm just going to share my thoughts. The first one is just, oh, sorry, Councillor Ray, were you trying to get in before me? Go ahead.
It was a question, not
Go ahead.
anything. Then just so that we have an alternate site plan here. I'm going to do a two-parter too. A, are we determining a placing with this temporary unit, a temporary use permit, and then B, and I know you're the fire department, but is there a concern with having this right up against the fire department building in terms of fire separation?
Chief Dixon.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, great questions. We positioned the original site plan that you have in the package, not the supplemental that was handed out tonight for the positioning of the trailer, was based on the most appropriate for providing power to it. And access to the rear door of the fire hall for the work experience candidates to come and go. There's no concern in terms of fire separation. I have had engagement with the building department to talk about these things and separations and to make sure that we're meeting building code standards. The supplemental site plan that you were given provided an alternate possibility based on it would be far less visible from the highway or from the surrounding traffic at the farmers market, and it would be positioned in a way that again would still give us good access for the candidates to utilize the bathroom facilities, cooking facilities, and coming and going for the sake of emergency response.
Okay, I'm just going to provide my comments. A couple of things. Just speaking to the trailer, I think if this was coming to us from anyone else and they wanted to place that Atco trailer downtown, I'd say no. And so I think the difficulty I'm having here is that I know the trailer, and when it was approved for what was then a small group of homeless people living across the road, it was a critical issue for some people. And this doesn't actually speak to the quality of the program the chief is bringing. It speaks to this issue that we set an aesthetic standard for downtown. And if anyone else asked us to put that particular trailer downtown, we just couldn't do it. So it is an Atco trailer. Even if you talk about wrapping it to make it pretty, it's still what it is. And so I just cannot support putting that Atco trailer for 5 months, for 3 months, or for 3 years under a temporary use permit. I think if this is a program that as a community we want to support, we have to find an alternate accommodation pros. I gave the chief a little heads up that this was not one that was coming easy to me. The trailer was offered by a local business to BC Housing for the purpose of supporting individuals. That's how we came to have that trailer in town. So I'm not sure if there's been a transition of ownership. Doesn't really matter to me right now, but that was a specific need that was seen in the community once upon a time. And it, you know, it was hard then to make the decision to approve that. And I guess Councillor Ray is probably the only person that remembers that at the table. But for this laudable program, and if this is something we as a community want, let's find an alternate way to accommodate the individuals. Anyone else? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think sort of based on some of the responses that have come from Chief Dixon, I would prefer to do it for a 1-year period. And then have staff come back with a recommendation or maybe an update on how the program went. Because I can appreciate the discussion around the cost savings. I would just hate for us to let it sit for the 3 years and not have a conversation on how it's going. But I'm open. I would love to hear from others too on their thoughts around that term. Thank you.
Councillor Raven.
I actually was going to suggest the same thing as having it brought back in a year just to kind of see how it's going. And while I understand that it might not meet the aesthetics, the one thing we hear again and again and again, and it was just brought up with the college this evening, is there's not enough accommodation. We do not have enough accommodation in this town, and we keep growing and we just don't have places to put everybody. And I know that the fire department has been doing a fantastic job of trying to recruit new members, and it's just been extremely difficult. And if this is a way to get some new people in, I think that it's for the benefit of the whole community. Is it ideal? Again, not. But I see this as a viable option. And even if we do it, or if we do it for the year, that gives us a year to see how it works, but also find a different solution. But I'm in support of the 1-year recommendation.
Councillor Ray.
So before I get into my thoughts, just I don't know if a temporary use permit's come to this council before, but you only get 2 cracks at it. So if you give 3 years, there could be a further 3-year one, but then there's no more cracks at a temporary use permit. So if we go to a year, it works out, then we can only go for another 3 years. That being said, I've been uncomfortable with this all day. I normally support the fire department, but I wouldn't accept this from anybody else. And I want to separate. I think the staff's done a good job of trying to solve a problem, but this is where we do the political part. And the political part is, I think Mayor Atchell mentioned it, even the storage building was some of the things that were waived. We heard from, well, there's one standard for the town, there's another standard for everybody else. And sometimes I don't get that argument because it's saving everybody money, or it's providing a community amenity that supports everybody. But the fact of the matter is that is out there. And I was trying to think, you know, it looks a little better against the fire hall. I really didn't like where it is in the report. But it isn't something I would support from anybody else. Yes, housing is a problem, but it doesn't mean we should lower our standards for what housing is. And I don't think, like, if the college came and said, hey, we bought an ATCO trailer, we want to put it up against the college and the students will run in to use the washroom and stuff, I don't think I would accept that. And I know around the community that I'm starting to see people parked in driveways and trailers and stuff, and that is also not acceptable. And if we start getting complaints about it and we are enforcing that bylaw, the first thing people will say is, well, you've got a trailer parked at the fire department. So, you know, I support the program, and maybe I didn't think it through when it was brought to us before, and I apologize for that. But I'd be against doing that. And I'd actually also even waiving section E to not have it presented to the advisory planning commission for the same reason that, you know, sometimes, and I think it does fit where we have waived it in the past sometimes, but if something like this came through and didn't go through that community lens, and we're going against a lot of things that we normally do, that is not a good look either. So I won't support either recommendation, unfortunately. And I hope we can find another solution. But those are the reasons why I won't support. And then however it goes, and I'll see what I can support along the way. But
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Anyone else? Councillor Leonard?
I'll just say I was favoring supporting the recommendation until Mayor Attrell and Councillor Ray started talking, and so I sort of get it and I understand both sides. I'm just questioned through to staff, and I know I toured the fire hall, but I've forgotten. Is there no way that we can accommodate them inside the hall?
Chief Dixon.
In through your worship, in the main hall, no, we don't have the upstairs space, which would be the most likely part of the hall that would have that flexibility is under lease to the Firefighters Association. And this is why we had entered into determining the feasibility of a mezzanine type arrangement in the back building, in which we already have drawings in the works for a feasibility study. It comes down to cost. That we're looking at to do something in the back building that would be a bit more permanent and give us, you know, all of the amenities that we need to offer is in the order to $150,000 to $200,000. This presentation that is before you is the lowest hanging fruit that we could pull together to try and support our numbers this season. And was it a bit of a scramble to put something together? Absolutely. But we're anticipating a very remarkable wildfire season again. As you know, to speak to Councillor Raven, our membership is down despite, you know, valiant efforts to get people into the program. Still takes time to get them trained. These work experience firefighters come fully certified out of the associated training academies that they go to and are much better able to hit the ground running and give us support Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, which is kind of our thinnest time because a lot of our volunteers work. So yeah, we were trying to force a square peg into a round hole with this proposal, but it opened the door to the conversation. As I mentioned to your worship earlier, I'm very aware of the optics of the town not holding itself to its own standards. And my feeling was if there was some way we could put some lipstick on this, the picture in the application package is not very attractive because the trailer's been sitting there for some time and it looks a little bit run down. But yeah, we are looking at other options. Absolutely. It's just time and money. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Councillor Leonard, anything else? Councillor Elliott and then Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, that was a tough one too. I know the standard we set for this sort of thing, and I know people do notice those things when we circumvent the rules for ourselves, but I don't know if if the college came and said, could we put something for housing? I don't know if I wouldn't support it or say we should let them do it. Same case here. I'm waffling in my brain because I don't want to, like, you know, people see lots of things about lots of things and accuse whoever of circumventing the rules, but also there's a need, and I don't know how else it can be met. So I would support this. I think, like the fire chief said, that it would fill a hole in the firefighting needs of the town in a very important time of year. But yeah, I would support the waiving of the section of the bylaw to allow this to happen.
Thanks, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Patterson, then Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'm glad that Chief Dixon raised it because that was one of the reasons why I wanted to say I would be in support, is recognizing that the wildfire threat is probably one of the most intimate threats to our whole entire province, God forbid. But I'm curious for those who are thinking that they're going to vote in opposition, if they would be open to changing their minds if the term was even shorter. So if it was, let's say, 6 months, so the half a month to set it up, half a month to take it down in the first term.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. I can come back to you. I'm going to Councillor Ray. He can answer if he wishes, and I'll keep going around the table. Councillor Ray.
Well, first of all, Mayor Atchell and I did were on council when the college came to us and wanted to put housing on Second Avenue, on Second Avenue, Fourth Avenue. Okay, on town property. And it just didn't fit in the neighborhood. And we actually made them go away, and we said no, and they managed to find something by Walnut Park. We recognized that there was a need for the housing, but we still chose to uphold what was best for the community. There are other ways for us to support this year. They might be more expensive. And that's sometimes, I know I'm pretty cheap when it comes to money and stuff, but I think here the political damage for not following our standards is probably a little greater than maybe a little bit more cost. I would be in support if we can find the money of fixing the mezzanine for future years, for sure. And as to Councillor Patterson's question, I think the only way I would support it is if we had money in place and we're building the mezzanine. And that's not the case. It's certainly a plan for the future, but it's not the case right now. And the other thing is if we do waive it going to the APC or anything, we're making a decision tonight. We haven't heard from the community. Maybe the community comes and tells myself, hey, you know what? Normally I agree with you, but the fire thing is more important. I don't know, but I know what I've heard in the past when we've broken our own, or not broken our own rules. I mean, we're following rules, we're following procedure to try and go against, but anytime the town goes against its own rules, we hear about it.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. So I've got Councillor Raven, and I put myself on the list. Councillor Raven.
So I hear and I understand that it might be politically awkward to approve this right now. But I also think that that's actually part of our position, is to make decisions that sometimes come up and we have to take it on the chin and look at what is more valuable. Again, I support it being just for a year because that would give the opportunity for cost estimates to go in to see if we can actually do a more permanent solution in the future. But when I think about the number of calls that our volunteer fire department had last year, like calls have skyrocketed. Our department, is burning out. I didn't mean to do that. But to a certain degree, we are relying on volunteers to take care of our entire community. And they can only do so much. And to bring in 4 firefighters, I think would significantly boost our department. We're in a drought. We know wildfires are coming. And when I think about the cost, there's more than just financial costs. There's cost to the community as a whole. There's a cost to safety. There's a risk to not being able to provide the level of coverage that has been in the past if we don't do something to support the fire department. And it's easy to say now because we just went through finance that, oh, well, we can just throw it onto next year's budget, or, what about taxes? But then we always come back to the point where when we go through finance is we always balk at the number. So I'm not going to be so easy to say that we can just put it off till next year. What I would love to see is have this in for a year. We can get the program started. That gives a year to find a more permanent solution and turn it back to staff to be able to come present something a bit more long-term.
Thanks, Councillor Raven. Okay, I put myself on the list. So I think, I mean, my position, as I stated, holds. And it's not about the program. So if this is a much needed program for the department, the chief said this is low hanging fruit. I mean, I have no idea what other explorations were done. It's 4 people renting a house. I mean, these are easy things for me to throw off my mouth, but it's like, this is not about the program. This is about putting an old Atco trailer downtown where we wouldn't do it for anyone else. And Councillor Ray has already reiterated, we've been through this before, different project, nicer trailers, still downtown, not on Main Street. So there's a couple of pieces to this. You know, there's a reference in here that the zoning doesn't support the dwelling either. So some councillors are going to the point that I would support the mezzanine. I'm not there yet either. So the program is in front of us. That's one thing. Housing people on a permanent basis in Central Park is something different. Like there's a lot of stuff on the table here. So the first part is whether or not we want to approve an Atco trailer in Central Park. And it doesn't matter how you wrap it. So that's a thing. That's the first piece. So whether it's for 3 months is better than a year is better than 3 years. But I mean, this is not something that I actually think is the right direction. If the program is critical, we'll find a way to support the program. This is about whether or not we want to change the zoning and use in Central Park on a short term leading to a long-term basis. So do we want permanent housing in the mezzanine? Maybe some people do. I think that's a whole other discussion. Right now, the use doesn't support dwelling. Right across the road from the fire department is a commercial operation. There are residents that live down that road, and we have a lot of tenants in public buildings in Central Park. We have agreements with all of those people on what the use is. We certainly can rezone if we want to. We can do a temporary use permit, but there are implications. So in my mind, this is not about the program. If the community or this council plus staff are determined this is a program we can support, we can probably figure out how to do it. I'm speaking to the use of a trailer and what's in front of us in the temporary use permit. And I can't support that. And I think, Councillor Raven, you said we have to stand up and make the decision. I think I am. I think this is maybe not the most popular decision in the face of the issues that people are putting on the table. But I think for that piece of property downtown with what we're talking about, this is the right decision. Councillor Patterson, we'll go around, we'll kind of do one more circle and then I'll try to gauge where we are. So Councillor Patterson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Worship. 2 questions to the staff. Do we have a plan in place for further recommendations to council on options to support the program? And second, just a rough timeline around that feasibility discussion that was raised by the chief on the actual long-term accommodations. Thank you.
Thank you, and through your worship to Councillor Patterson, we are looking at any option at this point. Again, this was the lowest hanging fruit that we could come up with that sort of checked enough of the boxes that we could make this viable. I want to be perfectly clear that we are late in the season, right? And even if the flavor of mayor and council was to support this tonight, we still don't know that we could pull this off. We're late into the season. We don't have an application process established yet to draw the candidates in, because I didn't feel it made any sense to put it out there onto Recruit BC until we had some ability to support our own program. So we are looking at options. We're possibly talking to the Stork's Nest to see about, accommodations there. But we're talking, in the order of, for the term of the 1 year of the firefighters, about a $50,000 bill based on market value for hotels and that kind of thing. So yes, we are trying to get creative and come up with a better option. The longer term mezzanine quote unquote approach, again, would be temporary housing only for the duration of the work experience program through the summer months. This would not be a 12-month or an ongoing program. It would be only during the summer months. And I disagree with the zoning as it's written. I believe that under the zoning, I can't recall the R1A, I believe, and Mr. Allen will.
Yeah, it's P1A,
P1A, thank you for the correction.
public utility.
Public Utility states fire hall as an approved facility on that. And I think by virtue of it being a fire station, it includes dormitory style accommodations. We haven't been able to get a definitive definition of fire hall for the purposes of that zoning question, but I think it's covered. I could be proven wrong. Thank you.
Okay. Want to just go around, Councillor Ray?
Yeah, so I want to make sure I'm clarifying what a political decision is. A political decision is we have a recommendation from staff. The politics of it is that we're kind of bending rules that we wouldn't bend for others. If whether I support it or don't support it, we have to face the public either way. So it's not political in that, oh, it's a hot potato, let's handle it carefully. It's political in that we're going against what's recommended by the staff. And we're only doing it because of politics, not because it's a horrible recommendation per se. Like it's a solution and it's a solution that they've worked on. I just don't think it's the right solution for all the reasons we've said before. And, you know, Chief Dixon was saying around 50, there's a local hotel that's renting rooms for $1,800 a month. That's $36,000. And so if it's in the fire department's budget, I would rather have them do that. We could bill it the fire department. Like, I don't want to tell the fire department how to handle it beyond, I don't think this is the right way. But if, you know, like there are other ways to make sure that we do get the firefighters if it's not too late in the season already. So again, like Mayor Atchell said, it's nothing against the program. I support the program. I support our volunteers and anything we can do to help them, but this isn't the right way to do it.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. I'm just going to go around the circle and you can pass if you want to. Councillor Leonard, I'm to you.
Yeah, just listening to the conversation and the debate, I tend to agree with Councillor Ray and Mayor Attrell, and I'll be voting against it. And I think firefighters are one of the single most important individuals right now to this province and to our community. So I do support the program, and I think if the money has to be found to house them in other options, then that's what we should be doing if it's that critical. And I think what pushed me over the cliff is actually Chief Dixon's suggestion that we might be past the point of even participating in the program for this season. So I will be voting no.
Thanks, Councillor Leonard. Councillor Elliott.
Well, my mind was changed. I do respect the opinions of the councillors at the table and the mayor, and yeah, I was kind of waffling before. I think we need to have a standard set. We need to keep it, and I do support the program too. And yeah, the program is good. I think once we start changing things to suit us, then that's going to be a problem. I don't mind someone getting mad at me for making a decision. If I voted for or against it, someone's going to be mad about something. It's okay. I get mad about things all the time, but I think for me sitting behind this table, I have to go with the bylaw and then support it since the council created it. So I won't be supporting. I changed my mind.
Thanks, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Raven.
Nothing more to add that I haven't already said.
Okay, so I think we don't actually have a motion on the table, so I think we can pass this by. The only thing that I'm going to ask council for, I'd like to give some, if it's the will of council, provide some direction for Mr. Doer and Chief Dixon about a go forward. So I heard a couple of things came out of my mouth too, is whether or not council supports the chief in pursuing the program, knowing that we would be asked to come up with some financing to support housing. So I think if we're not willing to consider that, then I think we can take the pressure off the chief in terms of trying to find the program on the short tether, and then we have a long-term to next year. But I heard some things at the table about being willing to support a request for financing for housing if an alternate is found. So I don't think maybe a motion is the best way to approach it. Councillor Ray, I can see your hands moving, so.
Sorry, just because I think there was money for moving the trailer and everything, and I'm assuming that if there was anything beyond what can already be handled in the budget, that the chief would come to council. But right now, I'm assuming he would still be looking at alternatives within the budget that's already been approved.
Mr. Dewar.
I was just going to say, without a resolution, I think staff has heard the discussion here tonight, and we can certainly investigate alternative options and look at costing behind it. And if we identify an option that we think is viable to bring back to council, we can certainly do such at that time.
Councillor Patterson.
And your worship, just a point of clarification for this season, correct?
If an option can be identified for this season, but otherwise would be looking at next season.
Your worship, I'd be willing to make the motion that you.
If you have, just give me one moment, because I wanted to give Chief Dixon an opportunity before we get a motion on the table and we muddy the waters. If you had any comments before we go any further.
Thank you, your worship. Yeah, to everybody around the table, I first of all, I want to say thank you for the obvious consideration you've given to the whole package. The trailer's not the best deal for us either. It's not the best option, but again, it was the quickest and possibly the got us started as a pilot. To speak to Councillor Ray, yeah, we don't have any money. We are actually working with Seabridge Gold. We've applied for some grant funding from them to try and even just to get the basics done. And I was going to, scrape and grovel to find a little bit of money to get the trailer habitable and appropriate. I'm happy to look at other alternatives. I'm happy to do some research on other potential options and come up with a modified budget. So, but in closing, thank you all very much for the thoughtful conversation.
Thanks, Chief Dixon. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mayor Attrell. I just wanted to, just for point of clarification, I guess that council does need to either approve the permit, amend it, or deny the permit. So we should have a resolution for denying the permit.
Thanks,
That's
Mr. Allen.
council's choice.
Yeah, thanks for that. Because there's no motions on the floor. So this is just a clarification for my brain. Because there's no motions on the floor, there's a request here from staff. If we did nothing, what would happen?
Yeah, the council because this is on the agenda, this temporary use permit application, it just requires council to
Okay,
either approve it or deny it, basically.
okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Patterson, if you just bear with me, I'm just struggling on where we're going to go from here and wanting to provide a little bit of clarity. So if there is a solution, I would invite staff to bring it back to us. Maybe that's as much as I need to say. I think I heard enough support for the program that if there is an option that staff want council to consider, bring it to us. So you don't need a motion for that. We'll make a motion on this part, but just to understand that I think there was enough support for the program. It's this particular solution that's not being supported, I think, when we finally do the vote. Chief Dixon.
Thank you, your worship. Yeah, I'm perfectly clear on the program getting the support, and thank you for that. It's much needed, and I think you can all appreciate that. I get that the other part is the difficult part, so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Patterson, who's been ready to make a motion. Probably the quickest would be, I'll look to Mr. Allen for the clarity, just to deny the temporary use permit. That does it? Oh, the alternate. Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Sorry, just a point of order. Do we still have to waive the section that goes to the APC because we're denying it without it going to the APC?
Okay, I think I'm feeling ourselves sinking. I can see Mr. Dewar and Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen, you go first.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Attrell. That could be keeping it within the actual council's ability to waive the bylaw. So essentially you are by considering the permit at this meeting. So that might be a wise decision to follow due process.
Okay, thanks. So then Counselor Patterson, I think where we are, and you may have some questions, but I'm trying to get to the motion that you've been trying to make, is that with the recommendations, point 1, we can move, and point 2, where it says approve, would say deny. Have I followed that well? So did that make sense to you, Counselor Patterson?
Yes.
Do you want to put that on the floor? Are you moving that?
Yes.
Ms. Mendel, are you following this? Because we're counting on you. Okay,
I think we got it.
okay. So Counselor Patterson moves and the motion in the second paragraph will be to deny. Is there a seconder?
So that's both at once.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Counselor Ray seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? And opposed? The motion carries with Counselor Raven opposed. So thanks, everyone. That was really hard and it's a little bit convoluted. And thanks staff for bringing stuff to us and thinking about how to get through. And I appreciate everyone's good humor at the table. It's hard when things are emotional, but thank you. Okay. I think we're at the 15s. Someone will tell me if I'm wrong. We have the report. We're right. Okay. We have the report from Ms. Westberg on the notification of staff vacancies for information. And I think there's lots of work going on with our staff with trying to recruit, getting people in and training and getting ads out. And some people departing, but we'll get to that later. Okay. The 16th, so we have a report, 16.1, a report from Ms. Chandran, the zoning bylaw for 1290 King Street. And we have before us first and second reading. If I get someone to do first reading, Counselor Ray, and a seconder, please, Counselor Raven. This just puts it on the table. All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, if someone could put second reading on the table, please. Counselor Leonard, Counselor Raven. Okay, for discussion. Counselor Ray.
Sorry, just first a question. Are we, after second reading, will we have a public hearing or is that already a done deal where we're not doing that anymore?
Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mayor Atchell. No, this will require a public hearing because we are rezoning from residential to commercial. If it was the reverse, then the public hearing would be prohibited. Yes.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, thanks for that. We're going to be in a learning period with this. Counselor Patterson, was that your hand?
Yes, Your Worship. Thank you very much. My only comment specific to the proposal is just around just preference. Like I would like to see this actually just be specific to residential housing. Obviously recognize intensification is important. And one of the reasons why is just the parking. Like just wondering if it's going to be commercial, where that parking would occur, recognizing there's significant parking that would occur in the lots adjacent to King Street, but that the surrounding developments are residential. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Mr. Allen, can you help with that? We don't have a design yet, but Mr. Allen?
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor Atchell. There was no detailed submission other than the one site plan that was included with the application. And it does show proposed parking both in the front of 4th Avenue and off the rear lane. I'm guessing that that parking is going to be inadequate and the building may need to be adjusted to accommodate the parking, but it will be, some parking is not required in the C1A zone if this is successfully rezoned. But I know the owners proposed to provide the parking for the residential suites because that's it's easier to accommodate the commercial parking on the street, but not the residential because of snow clearing during the early hours in the mornings. So that has been discussed with the current applicant.
Counselor Patterson, it's good. Anyone else? Questions? Counselor Ray?
Just a question through to Mr. Allen, um, regarding Mr. Uberman's, comments. Sorry, at the present, what is the, highest density of housing that's permitted in R2? How many units would that be?
Mr. Allen?
I believe that would be 2 to 4 units, dwelling units on that property. Sorry, I don't have that number calculated for you, but that's my guess. Up to
Yeah.
4 units.
So my comment there is just that by leaving it R2, I don't think we're any further ahead. We can't make somebody build an apartment in R2 anyways. So there's that. Actually, is second reading even on the floor? Oh, it is, sorry. If there's nobody else having questions, I can start in on comments. Yeah, so my main concern actually about this is traffic. Is the addition of a commercial, it's very hard to turn out of the lane between 4th Avenue and 3rd Avenue. It's very hard to turn left out of that lane. It's hard to see past trees. You get people at the 4-way stop, they're going through too quickly to turn left out of there. That 4-way stop is very busy with the school and everything. And I don't know if it's at second reading, I don't know if it's why I would vote against second reading. But I certainly would probably be interested in what the traffic impact would be of a commercial operation, because it's an intersection that I think it's problematic at 3rd and King. It's not like a big city problem, but for Smithers, it's not the easiest place to add a bunch more traffic, in my opinion. And yeah, I think, you could probably get 3 or 4 units on top of a commercial building on that size of lot. So I think in terms of units of residential, that we're probably fairly square, and it's just a matter of whether that commercial is the right fit for that particular parcel.
Thanks, Counselor Ray. Others? I just got a question. It's gonna be a memory test. I was trying to pull up Google Maps here, but you said something about the trees. Are there still trees there? Like most of the trees were taken down?
There's trees along the main street side of King, so north or whatever it is, and they're hard to look past when there's leaves on them.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this one? Just for clarity, and I think, at second reading, Mr. Allen has said we're going to go to public hearing on this one. I'm not feeling any reason why we wouldn't go to public hearing on it. Just in terms of, we don't know what the scope of the commercial development would be. It'll be, designed perhaps for a specific tenant or put up for rent. But we have parking available on 4th Avenue. There's no parking on King. So there's the equivalent of a couple of parking lots on 4th, really? Like, is that what it would be? 2 cars?
Yes,
Mr.
thank
Allen?
you. Yeah, and just to clarify, there is no parking on King Street on both sides because of the new bicycle lanes, right?
Yeah, sorry, that's what I meant to say if I
Yes.
said it backwards, but. So I understand there'd be parking for the residents in concept. That makes complete sense. And we have in a lot of places waived parking, like that's another reality here that, we have to deal with that as we go forward. It may well be that at the end of the day, the proponent will have to address parking a little bit more just for business success, if nothing else. But that's going to be up to the proponent if this proceeds through the public hearing. But again, at this point, because we're going to public hearing, I think that part of town, it is the commercial core. It's a combination of commercial plus businesses. At this point, I'm not seeing any reason not to go to public hearing. Councilor Ray?
Sorry, I was just wondering if Mr. Allen could comment about my concerns about traffic.
Mr. Allen?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Atchell, to Councilor Ray. I guess we see this as equivalent to the other side of the downtown core at Fourth and Queen, where the McElhaney Building is located on a similar corner lot. It may be set back a little further from Queen Street. But it's a similar arrangement with parking both on the front and off the rear lane. It just doesn't have residential. But I think with absolutely correct, the access to King Street from the lane will be, as with all lanes, those intersections are, I wouldn't say dangerous, but the fact that the building is being pulled away from the lane, it does lend to better safe sight lines when cars are accessing King Street from the lane. And then Fourth Avenue, it would, likely have, I would say, just curb parking based on the current layout. And because there will be a sidewalk required on Fourth Avenue, that's not shown on the diagram. So likely that would just be parallel parking, and it would be, there would not be any access from the front of the property back onto King Street. They would have to travel further down Fourth Avenue. So if that helps at all.
Yeah, I think it does. I know that in the past, council's asked for a traffic study before we go to public hearing because it's not really appropriate to do it afterwards. So I just wanted to hear staff's thoughts on that before we moved on.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Councillor Raven.
Just to add my thoughts into the parking conundrum. Right across the street, there's the Roy Theater parking lot. There's also parking on Fourth, and then on the far corner, by the No Frills Mall, like all at the back, there is a significant amount of parking that's literally across the street. So depending what kind of commercial venue, it might be a therapist's office where you really only have one vehicle coming and going. We don't really know the scope. So I'd really like to see this go to public hearing before we start going too far down the rabbit hole that I just contributed to.
But I like this rabbit hole. Councillor Ray.
Sorry, this is the kind of rabbit hole where we're free of the confusion of having a project. So we can just think about its zoning, what could possibly go there. And then you can start to think of, in my case, worst case scenarios with traffic and such. I agree, it's probably more suited, the size of it, to a smaller operation, but I'm not a business person either. I don't see the possibilities for a lot of different outside of the box kind of things there, but they could happen. And that's when we're really looking at zoning, that's when you look at beyond what is actually going there. It's what might go there and what problems might cause or what benefits as well.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Mr. Allen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I think the important consideration by council is that this meets the intent of the official community plan. It already has the correct downtown commercial designation. So it's actually the zoning that is not in compliance with the official community plan at this point. If this was to remain residential, then staff would be probably coming back to council to adjust the official community plan at the next amendment. So I think what we were talking about earlier, the parking, exactly what Councillor Ray was talking about, what could go there, that would be, this will require a development permit. And that's the point where council would consider the site plan, the traffic flows and parking, and the look of the building as well.
Thanks, Mr. Allen. The only other thing, and it's, it doesn't affect the stage either, but it is, whatever discussion staff have with the proponent on, maximizing the residential capacity. So we do have some language in our zoning bylaw about density, and I don't know if it applies here, but I think there's an opportunity to think about because it's downtown, sort of smaller units, and there'll be small units because it's not a huge lot, but you know, is there a way to maximize that? And this particular builder has demonstrated creativity in how he's approached projects before. So there may be something very innovative coming, but it would be interesting to hear them. And I know we don't get to hear them at this point, but you know, during the public hearing, perhaps we'll hear from the proponent as well about what the ideas are. I guess that's it for now. Last round. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried unanimously. That'll go to public hearing. And that's the time for all comments. Is that public hearing? Okay. Seventeens. Correspondence for actions. We have the first one from Chief Logan. With a request on page 2. So I think this is here for action, but unless council wants to respond some way, Mr. Dewar, did you want to? Otherwise, I mean, you're invited to do the things that are on that place. If we want a group session, we can convey that information either now or later to Mr. Dewar.
Yeah, certainly there are 3 requests within the letter. It's one that certainly there's options for individual council members as well as individuals in the public to attend some of the engagement sessions. There is also an option if council so chooses to set up a session just for ourselves. But yeah, we don't necessarily see any motion needing to come forward. Just that it was one that there is an official request from the proponent or the letter writer.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Yeah, and you know, maybe that's the way to find out, but my concern with a big center in Prince George is this going to pull services away from the Child Development Center, which is based in Smithers. That's always a concern with lots of different services. Sometimes, you know, we build a big hospital in Terrace and all of a sudden there's some blood work going there. And so that would be my only real concern about this. Otherwise, I'd be perfectly happy to support it, but it is a concern.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll just move on. I am going to, I've lost things. 17.2. Yeah, I did lose it. 17.2, the cadet letter. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. Question through to staff if they felt that it may be appropriate to ask through our social media avenues. I think it's only Facebook, or at least post something to help to support the Sea Cadets and their expression of interest for volunteers, just as one option, the only option, maybe, I don't know.
Mr. George.
Thank you. Through to the worship, to Councillor Patterson. We met with the Sea Cadets today to talk about this and some other avenues. Staff's recommendation on this would be some in-person events that we encourage them to participate in and reach out to. We invited them to participate in Clubs Day and a few others to attract additional volunteers to their program. The framework that we have right now for town social media channels and communications is just for town operated functions. So yeah, staff's recommendation would be for the town to continue to work with them in the avenues to encourage participation.
Good, Councillor Patterson. Yep. And I guess individuals can share as they wish if we remember to share things on our own pages. And thanks for picking that up and trying to provide some support. This is an organization that probably needs a little boost, so thanks for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Worship. Just an item of information to council. When we met with the cadets today, so this is their provincial organization that's coming through. They're meeting with a couple different municipalities. So this letter is to meet with Your Worship when they're in town for these 4 days. But the local cadets association is going to be putting something forward to council at the next council meeting, just around some of their updates and what they're looking for. So council can expect to hear a little bit of updates from our local cadets.
Thanks for the reminder on that, Councillor Ray.
I just wanted to throw my support behind what Mr. George and his department are doing. I don't think we want to start advertising for everybody that needs help, because a lot of people need help. A lot of organizations need help and volunteers, and we can certainly, and I think Clubs Day is the right way to encourage that.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands or suggestions, so I'm going to move on. And then we have the one that I forgot, 19.3 out of the supplemental, I'm sorry. That's now 17.3, the letter from Jonathan Doherty. For you? Okay.
Yeah, so we received a letter from Mr. Doherty asking specifically to have this put on the agenda for today. And basically what the letter is outlining is that they're hoping to have the streets swept earlier rather than later. They certainly do understand the policies we have in place in terms of the usual timing for the street sweeping. And so that's one that before we dive too deep into it, I'm happy to say that our Director of Operations has already been looking into it. And so a couple factors. I guess first off, we are looking at starting street sweeping earlier this season, just because we have been watching that weather window and it is an unusual spring, I guess we'll say. There are some considerations in terms of our street sweepers use water, so we have to be aware of the cold mornings. So when they do start street sweeping in the coming weeks, they will be kind of hitting more that afternoon, kind of warmer period point in the day. And there again, we also do have to take significant time to transfer some of the, I guess, the apparatus from snow clearing to street sweeping. And so we do have to keep some of our equipment prepared for snow just in case. So we're going to have fewer machines in the get-go. But it's one that certainly we will be starting that process early this year as soon as possible. So it's one that we can certainly follow up with at the staff level with Mr. Doherty as well and let him know. But just kind of wanted to let council know before diving into the discussion that our operations team's already been looking into this, and we're pleased to announce that we are making as positive moves as we can to progress that timeline into the spring.
Thanks, Mr. Dora. Did I see a hand back here? Okay. And just for clarity, are you communicating with him, with Mr. Doherty?
Yep, certainly we can.
Okay. Just so one of us
Yep.
does. All
Yep,
right.
we will follow up with Mr. Doherty.
Okay. Councillor Ray.
Just that it's good to hear that staff's doing it, and this is not our job at this point in time. If somebody wishes for a service level change, then that time is a budget. I'm just a little concerned because it is addressed to council, it comes to a council agenda, but this is essentially a request for service. And I'm sure that regardless of this letter, that operations was going to do what they felt was the right thing, but I just don't want to see it where somebody kind of couches their request for service in a council letter and tries to get it put up the queue. I'm sure that's not what this gentleman was intending. I understand his concerns, but I just want to make sure that, you know, council's aware we're not supposed to be directing this kind of down to this kind of level. If it's a service level change and we want it done earlier every year, we need to discuss that at budget.
Thanks, Councillor Ray. Yeah, and I think this one's been a long time coming because of the changing weather that we've had in the past several winters. So we've had many requests / comments over the years for, can we move up the dust control? I mean, it's dusty in January now. We can't do street sweeping in January, but it's dusty a lot of the time. And there was some discussion at the previous council about, you know, looking at the type of sweeping equipment that we have as well, moving to waterless. I don't actually even know what that means when I say it, but we had discussions at the table about maybe it's time to look at the type of equipment we have that can pick up some of the rocks and the dirt earlier. So this will be a live one for us if winters are as short and as dusty as they are, because lots of people are suffering with the dust. The air quality advisories are pretty steady right now. So I appreciate that staff has looked at it since last year. We had similar requests last year to deal with the dust. And so it's nice to know that staff have taken that time to figure out how can we move it forward, because I know there's operational constraints too, other than the dust in the air. So if we're, let's just, it seems like our winters are getting shorter. Maybe next year will be the long one, but I heard you though, Councillor Ray. I'm happy to respond on behalf of council, just saying your letter's been received and staff are dealing with the issue. That closes the loop for council.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is that, I can't remember it being this warm in March this early. And there's nothing to say that in 3 weeks, it's not going to have a big snowstorm. And I know if we sweep everything up and then have to put it back down again, we'll hear about that too. So I appreciate the difficult spot that the staff's in and trying to make the right decision at every time this year. So of year.
Okay, I'm not seeing any motions, so we'll just move on from that. Now I think I'm at the 18s. Is there anything council would like to pull out of the 18s? Okay. Then if I haven't forgotten anything, I think we're ready for the motion. I just wanted to thank council again for lots of energy in the conversation. There was lots to talk about tonight. And I appreciate the quality of the conversation around the table. And it's always nicer when we fully agree with each other, but I appreciate the respectful conversation when it's a bit tougher. So thanks, everyone. And with that, a motion to adjourn, whoever feels like it. Somebody. Councillor Raven, Councillor Elliott, all in favor? Any opposed? And we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, staff as well.